everyone. Thank you so much for joining another Case Works stream. Really excited today to have the opportunity to connect with Chad Dudley. I'll give a quick intro, and then I'd love, Chad, for you to share a little bit more information about your background. But Chad is an expert in law firm management, marketing, and technology. Chad is not only an attorney, but he's the chief operating officer for his firm, Dudley DeBosier. And what I learned a little bit about the firm is that they now have over 50 attorneys with offices throughout Louisiana. But also, in addition to all those things, Chad also founded Vista Consulting with Tim McKee back in 2009. And Vista Consulting works with personal injury firms all across the country on all aspects of running a law firm. And in addition to that, Chad is the CEO of CJ Advertising, which represents personal injury firms throughout the country. So I'll take a breath and stop there. Chad, if you could share a little bit more about yourself and tell us, kind of what got you into becoming an attorney and personal injury.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Great to be here. And I became an attorney back in 2000. And my first job out was with a plaintiff's firm. I got assigned to a toxic tort case with about 4,000 plaintiffs, and I was put in charge of handling our discovery responses. And so it was quite an ordeal. And I learned that the defense attorney on the other side really knew her stuff, and she was on top of her game, and realized that she was very adept at building databases and tracking all of our clients and what their medicals were and where they lived and when. And she's awesome. And I said, you know what, if I'm going to keep up with her, I better learn some of this stuff. And so I went down this path of learning how to build databases and so forth. And then after that job, went to other gigs where I employed those skills, and then ultimately ended up being a COO for a personal injury firm, building dashboards and looking at the data of how personal injury firms work. That led to my partners and I starting our own firm, and also Tim Mackey and I starting Vista Consulting back in 2009. Both of those grew, and probably worked with over 100 law firms across the country of every size, personal injury firms. Over the years, helped them with everything from coaching to strategic planning to buying and selling firms to transfers of ownership to increasing their average fee, just basically everything under the sun that plaintiff firms do. And just love it, and just always enjoyed it. In 2018, I stepped out of Vista Consulting. Tim Mackey runs it today, and got out of it because we purchased CJ Advertising, which is an ad agency that only represents personal injury law firms. And so CJ represents probably about 50 different firms across the country right now, and help them with all forms of advertising. My background brought the operational side, and so when CJ works with firms, we not only help them with their advertising, but also help them just build and grow their practice. And I love what I do. I feel lucky to be able to do this and get paid to do it, and love talking about it. So
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you kind of touched on this, but it would be great to hear a little bit more. I think you said when you became an attorney, and the other attorney, you had 4,000 plaintiffs, and one of the key takeaways was the technology and the infrastructure to be able to manage all the database of those clients and to move them through the pipeline. Any other secrets you can share with us, just having done the different aspects and running a law firm like a business?
Well, I've worked with all different sizes of firms over the years. I've worked with, solo practitioners. I've worked with firms that are built kind of like us, where they might have dozens of attorneys, multiple locations. And regardless of the size, just the firms that are disciplined about how they track their files and how they move their files forward, how they communicate with clients. I mean, yes, if you're a smaller firm and you say, you know what, I'm just going to talk to my clients whenever I feel like it. I've seen firms that they can pull it off. They got one attorney, and I'm going to call them, and they're able to do that and manage that on a small basis. As soon as they hire that second attorney, things get different, because the first attorney's concept of talking to clients and keeping them informed is always different than the second person. It's important for them to get together and say, okay, this is what we mean by that, and this is how we're going to execute on that. And then you talk about, well, how do you move files? How do you make sure that you are aggressively pushing files? And all plaintiff attorneys say, yes, that's what we want to do, but getting serious about it and setting standards for, okay, well, how long is it going to take us to get medical records, and how long, what do our demand packages look like, and what is contained therein? Do we do medical chronologies or do we not? And what are the standards of handling a file at our firm? How long do we negotiate before we file suit? And if we file suit, how long do we push to get discovery answered and get defendants deposed and so forth? And how disciplined is your firm in those regards? And that's the difference between the firms that are able to grow in a responsible way and maintain a good quality of life versus the firms that are running around stagnant, but running around and hair on fire and everything's chaos.
Right.
And so when I go work with firms, we look at, okay, what standards are in place? How good are they at enforcing those standards and giving visibility to their team on those standards? And what are they missing to better represent their clients? Sure.
No, that's great. And that's, Case Works, effectively, that's what we do, is we're the outsourced solution for law firms. You kind of touched on this, for firms that just don't have the technology foundation or the infrastructure, kind of what you were describing. It's very much of a protocol-driven process. So you need a process in place and the technology to be able to scale. And what you do for one client, if you have that process, you can do for 1,000, as long as you're following the same process, kind of start to finish. I'm curious, what drove you to starting Vista Consulting?
Well, when I had back in 2009, I had built. Basically, I was in charge of running a personal injury firm, and what I noticed is that, like any firm, you have some attorneys that perform better than others. And what I decided to do is, let me go follow the top 3 performers at our firm. What are the attorneys that get the best results on the most consistent basis, have the best relationship with their clients, get the most referrals, and tend to move files the most aggressively? And let me just go follow them around for a couple days, and just, how do they structure their day? What are the things that they look at? What are the things that they do on a consistent basis? How do we simplify? Because our firm, like a lot of firms, have these checklists that they go through, and these checklists were piling up on people, and people were overwhelmed with these checklists. And so, okay, can we simplify it? And what I noticed is that there was a handful of things that they were doing, and I said, okay, can I build a dashboard to measure how well everyone else does these 5 things? And then let's give everyone visibility, like, okay, this is what I do, how often I talk to clients, this is how often I touch the file and do these things, and this is how often I touch my negotiation files, and this is how often, or how quickly I can get demands out, and this is, and you put these things in place. And so when I did that, the performance of the firm, the average fees, the time on desk, client satisfaction, all these things just went through the roof and became great. And we had other firms that said, hey, that sounds awesome, tell us what you did. And we tell them what we did, and finally they said, well, that's awesome, can you just come walk us through it? And then Vista Consulting was born, where we go to a firm and say, okay, we'll do sort of an assessment on the health of your firm, and then we would share, this is what we see in terms of where your firm can improve, tell us what you're feeling being in the firm, and we come up with a list of what are the things that are going to move the dial the most for this particular firm, and we get to work on it. And Vista Consulting was born. And back in the day, there was not a bunch of consultants out there that worked with personal injury firms, and now, over a decade later, it's a bunch of different companies are getting into that space, and felt like trailblazers in that area, and very, very cool.
Yeah, no, that is cool. What would you say that you mentioned 5 things? What were the common denominators that you saw across the attorneys that were very successful and how they're able to move those cases?
One of the first things was the frequency with which they spoke with their clients. The high performing attorneys spoke with their clients on a very regular basis in the first 90 days of the case, and they built this relationship with the client. Most of them were speaking personally with them at least every 15 days, talking about getting a good feel for what are the injuries, where are they still having pain, which doctors are they treating with, is there any other things that they need to be aware of, is there traumatic brain injury involved, is there ridiculous, like in tune with what's going on with the client's treatment, in high number of client contacts in the first 90 days. And then after the first 90 days, they'd still talk to clients, maybe not as on a frequent basis, but still very regular and in tune with what's going on in the client's world. And so client communication was a discipline that they all employed. The second thing is that they touched the file more frequently than other attorneys, and they touched it with intention, meaning they pick up a file and go, what can I do on this file in the next 30 days to add value to it, to get it resolved, or get a trial date? What can I do to keep moving this thing forward in the next 30 days? And they'd be intentional, and they would execute on that. And so we looked at that. The other thing was just being disciplined about, okay, here's the files that are in negotiation, have a package out, and knowing exactly where they left off and able to access that information in a very quick manner. The attorneys that had to go pull a hard file, find out where the last communication with the defendant was, or the defense adjuster was, and okay, what's the claim number again? What's their number? All that kind of stuff. When you multiply it by the number of files, would just bog them down. And so they were very on top of which files were in negotiations, where they left off, and the easiest way to keep those things going. And then in litigation, I'm very purposeful about sort of the dominoes that they would push over to get the defendant to do what they want, which is pay X amount of dollars to their client. Okay, if they send a demand and the defendant didn't do what they want, then okay, we're filing suit. Okay, they still don't do it. All right, we're going to make them answer the suit. Okay, still not doing it. They're going to answer the next set of discovery. Still won't do it. We're going to take the defense deposition. Still, and boom, boom, boom. And very disciplined about what was the next domino to topple to get them doing. They didn't wait around and let things linger. And so we saw these things and going, okay, well, how can we measure them? How can we show how does everybody in the firm do on these things? And that was kind of like the early dashboards that we built. So someone could say, okay, well, I've spoken with 90% of my clients in the last 15 days who are still treating. Okay, I'm doing pretty good. And then someone else might be at 20%. And we go, okay, we got to go coach that guy or find out what's going on. And that's kind of the path it took.
Yeah. Data transparency is key for sure. And that which gets measured certainly improves. Mm-hmm. And so this is great. And let me ask you this. I mean, the process that you're referring to and a lot of the information that you're sharing is specifically, personal injury related, but what about mass tort? I mean, it's really tough.
Absolutely.
But, again, I think a lot of what you're saying applies for the mass tort firms as well.
Correct. And I work with a lot of firms and I go, look, there's the tools don't necessarily change, but then what you do with those tools may. And so same thing with mass torts. When I've worked with mass tort firms, saying, how often are we going to communicate with our clients, right? And who's going to communicate with them? Okay, is it in mass tort claims, it's usually less frequent than on an auto or PI or single event claim. It might be, okay, we're going to communicate with them once a quarter, and we're going to communicate with them via text or via email. And then we're going to, and if there's a special event that occurs in the case, then we're going to do special communication. And that's kind of but having a plan of how they're going to do it is important. And so many mass tort clients the complaints would be, I don't know what's going on with my case. I can't reach anybody. And how are you going to manage client communication? The other thing going, okay, well, what are the different aspects of the case in terms of just keeping these things moving forward? What do we need to do? Okay, what are the metrics we're going to measure? Okay, for mass torts, it's a little bit different. Going, okay, we do the intake process. Okay, that's great, and there's a whole conversation about intake. But once you get them in the door, for most mass torts, it's like a second intake that goes. Mm-hmm. Do we have proof of use? Do we have proof of loss? And what are the signature injuries, and are they present in this case or not? And that batch kind of gets make it past the second intake, because a lot of people, you sign them up and then they don't have proof of use, proof of loss, and they get handled differently, right? And so you set up the same concepts, but they're just a little bit different for mass torts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, what you're talking about, client communication, I think a lot of people underestimate the value of reaching out and connecting with people on a regular basis, even if it's just to give a quick update and share maybe some news about the litigation and how it's progressing. Because I know Case Works spends a lot amount of time on trying to keep these plaintiffs well-informed and engaged throughout the process, because people move, they change phone numbers, addresses, and then you can't get a hold of them, and then you spend all this resources trying to re-engage an unresponsive client. It helps also to drive down any dual rep issues if you're communicating with them on a regular basis. And then it's just a great client interaction, and then they're out and they're raving fans, and they're, the likelihood, if they're like on Zantac, for instance, the likelihood they know someone else that took Zantac may have cancer is probably pretty high. So I think the client communication is key.
Yes, absolutely everything you just said, because that's the truth. And client communication really is the secret sauce, the not so secret sauce. It is. It does so many great things for the client, for their case, and for your firm. Yet it is so often overlooked, downplayed by law firms. We talk to our clients.
Yeah.
That's as far as they take it. And so the firms that are high performing firms take simple concepts like that. Hey, we're going to talk to our clients, and they get fanatical about them. Okay, you know what? We're going to talk to clients. We're going to have these 8 crucial conversations with the client in the first 90 days. And it's the first call that comes within 24 hours. We're going to cover this, and then and then here we're going to talk to them about this, and then we're going to make sure that there's never a 7-day period that the client doesn't hear from either the attorney or the legal assistant in the first 90 days. And then, at 90 days, we're going to have this conversation with the client, because they tend to get, kind of worn out with the whole process by about 90 days. And then once the demand package, we're going to have this, and here's how that, and so they get fanatical about the concept. And other lower performing firms, like, you talk to the client whenever you want and just see where the conversation goes.
Sure. Right. What are on the website, it says that you've seen some things at other firms. What are the top things, or maybe even mistakes, that you've seen at some of these personal injury firms, besides the lack of communication in their client? But what are some other mistakes?
Well, I think, like, one of the first things is that there's very few firms. In the past 30 days, I've done planning sessions with probably about 20 or 25 law firms, where the firms sit down, we look at what is happening, where do they want to be at the end of 2022? On December 31st of 2022, where do they want the firm to look like? There's so many firms out there that don't do that. And that's just, sounds like a small thing, sounds like pain in the butt, but it is so important for, if there's one partner or one owner, that they communicate to the rest of the team, here's where we're going as a firm, here's the firm that we're trying to build. If you got multiple owners, it's important for them to get on the same page and say, here's the firm that we are trying to build, and communicate that to their key people. I think first and foremost, I see a lot of firms make a big mistake in never stopping to think what they're trying to build or what direction they're trying to go. I think, the other probably big mistake is just staying in a bubble and not, I'm just going to work in my firm. I'm not going to listen to podcasts like these. I'm not going to go to conferences. I'm not going to go talk to other people that have built firms that resemble what I would like to build and get insight. I'm not going to hire a coach. I'm not going to hire someone to come in and accelerate that growth. And that's a big mistake. They make it so much more difficult than it needs to be. And I've seen firms that struggle to conquer some things, and it takes them a year, when if they just gone to the right conference, listened to the right thing, got the right coach, it would have taken 3 months. And I see that over and over.
Sure. Have you ever read or follow the Entrepreneurial Operating System?
Yes.
Yeah.
Big fan of it.
Yes.
Back in Vista, look at a lot of the concepts that they propose. So funny how many parallels there are to what we recommend and how firms operate, and from running meetings to the accountability chart to tracking metrics and discussing and all these different elements of the EOS. And so, we'll say, like, they line it out so clearly and concisely in Traction and some of the other books.
Yeah.
That huge fan of it.
Yeah, no, what you were just saying just reminded me, just everyone being on the same page, rowing in the same direction. I think that's key in understanding what your quarterly rocks are so that you can achieve, quarter over quarter, make sure everyone's meeting their goals and adjusting if need be. As far as technology goes, do you consider yourself an early adopter of technology? And
yeah, I think so. I'm always, always looking, how can we make this more efficient? Is there technology that we can leverage to make this flow smoother? But also, I'm also at the school going, okay, don't overthink it to this extent that it's going to take you 3 months to build some custom platform that gives you this data. I mean, if you can just get someone to plop it into a spreadsheet and see it now, then let's see it now and then build something crazy cool later. Like, let's get the functionality first and the purpose it serves. I would say, yeah, we're always looking at how to improve what's happening in our industry and improve what we do, because if I wasn't, it'd be contrary to everything that I preach.
Sure. Yeah. Has your firm started to see like social media or other technology related personal injury cases?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what we're going to see with social media is that we're limited in one sense by technology, in the sense that last touch attribution dominates most of our analysis for many firms. Going, okay, they could have watched a YouTube video, then went to our social media page, then went to some other platform, and then ultimately filled out a form or clicked on a PPC link and then came to us, and then our form submission or PPC gets last touch attribution and gets credit for it. And a lot of firms don't have visibility. Well, what other digital properties did they touch before they became a client? There's platforms out there that will do it. And as those platforms emerge, we're seeing, okay, well, it's more complex than we thought, because you can see, just like Amazon or other, big internet companies, they know that you went to these different digital properties that they own, if your cookies are on, and they can say, okay, well, 6 months ago, you went to our social media page, and then, 4 months ago, you went and watched one of our YouTube videos on and then actually you signed up for one of our promos, and then you called us. And so there's more to the story that we're learning. I think we'll continue to see that, and see that social media plays a little bit bigger role than a lot of us give it credit for in the past couple of years. And we're also seeing more innovative use of social media, connecting with audiences that just want to interact with, because you're putting out a brand that they're attracted to. And we've seen a ton of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this has been a very timely recording. I think that people are starting to come back from the holidays, and they're going to begin looking at, as you just mentioned, where do they want their firm to be this time next year? And so how are they going to take the strides and the steps to get there? And so I'm sure there's going to be firms and attorneys that watch this recording and would like to connect with you. So how can, if anyone needs help and needs assistance and wants to run their firm like a business, how do they get a hold of you and contact you about consulting?
The simplest way would be to my email, chad.dudley@gmail.com. Just shoot me an email, and we'll get you plugged in.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Well, Chad, gosh, this was such great information, and I certainly appreciate you taking time to connect with us today and talk a little bit about what you do and your background, and then how you can help other attorneys and firms grow their business and maybe just not make the mistakes that you've seen in the industry. And so anyway, thank you so much for your time today, and we greatly appreciate it.